Hey everyone, in this video, I'm going to be going over the legal problem, non-overlapping intervals. So first, let's read the question. Given an array of intervals, where each element of the intervals array is another array with two elements, a start and end value, return the minimum number of intervals you need to remove to make the rest of the intervals non-overlapping. Let's look at example 1. So here the input with the intervals array is a 2D array where you have 1, 2 as the first element, 2, 3 as the second element, 3, 4 as the third element, and 1, 3 as the fourth element. And by removing 1, 3, we won't have any overlapping intervals anymore. And so that's why the output is just 1. We just have to remove this one interval. So for this problem, what I'm going to do is I'm going to first sort the intervals in ascending order by the end time, or the second element. And we're also going to need to keep track of the end time of the last non-overlapping interval. So I'm going to have a variable called last end time. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to initialize it to be the to be the second element of the first element of intervals. So basically what happens is that last end time, and I'll probably abbreviate this to let, is going to keep track of the last end time of the last non-overlapping interval. And we're also going to need to have another variable to keep track of the number of overlapping intervals that we need to remove. So I'll just call like num overlapping intervals. And I'm going to initialize this to 0. And this is what's going to be returned. So here's the logic with the algorithm to this question. We're going to loop through the intervals array from the second element because we already took the first element. We're going to loop from the second element. And for each interval that we encounter, we're going to check its start time. If the start time is less than the last end time value, then we know that that's an overlapping interval, and we discard that and we update this num overlapping interval counter. Otherwise, which means that the interval isn't overlapping, we update last end time. So let me write this out. So again, I'm going to do a Python pseudocode. So I'm going to extract the start and end time from the interval. And if the start is less than last end time, which is like LET this thing, then we know that this interval is an overlapping interval and one that we need to discard. So we're simply just going to update this num overlapping interval. Otherwise, we're going to update let with the last end time to be the end time of this interval, which is just E. And finally, we're just going to return the num overlapping interval value, this counter here. So let me do an example real quick. Let me scroll down a bit. So assume that this is the array we have after we do the sorting. So we have 1, 2, 1, 3, 2, 3, and 3, 4. And these values here, they came from the first example that we did, except that I already sorted the the rate by the second element. So to begin, so our LET value is going to be 2, and the number of overlapping intervals is 0. So in the first iteration, our S is 1. Again, because we're looking at the second element, right? So our S is 1, our E is 3. We see that S is less than LET. So we know that this interval overlaps with this interval. And so we're going to update the number of overlapping intervals to 1. We're going to increment this by 1. So now it's set to 1. In the second iteration, our S is 2, our E is 3, and we see that S is not less than LET, so we're going to update LET to E. So LET now equals to 3, and 3 comes from here. And in the third iteration, our S is 3, our E is 4, and again we see that our S is not less than LET, so we update LET to E. So LET is now 4, and we've run out of intervals, so we just return the number of overlapping intervals, which is 1. So we just return 1. So let me go to the code and write this out. So this line here is how we're gonna sort the intervals in ascending order by the second element. And we're also gonna have the last n time variable that I mentioned. So this will be the second element of the first element of intervals. So this, and we're also gonna have number of overlapping intervals, and this will be initialized to 0, and this is what is going to be returned. Oh, also I think I made a small mistake here. So in this case, right? When I say interval, like we actually should skip the first interval. Yeah, so that's a small mistake here. You shouldn't do it like this. You should use like in range. But yeah, that's a small mistake I made. Yeah. So now we're looping through the elements of the interval array, starting from the second element. So here we're gonna extract the start and end time. And so like I mentioned, right? So if the start is less than last end time, that means that there's an overlap, and so we basically want to discard this interval. So we're gonna update number of overlapping intervals by 1. Otherwise, we just update last end time to the end time of this interval, which is E. So let me do a quick test run to make sure I didn't mess anything up. Okay, looks good. And let me submit this. And yep, you can see that this is a pretty efficient solution. Thank you all for watching. I hope you learned something.